Men who are too into the idea of 100-0 kind of freak me the fuck out. Because, they present themselves as so, like, yeah, like, I don't want my wife to work for another man. Like, I want her to have an easy life. My money is her money. Her money is her money. Oh, that sounds real good, doesn't it? But they never end up being so pure like that. Because if they can feed you, they will starve you. And some of you women just don't fucking get that, bro. And it's like, oh, people talk about the patriarchy, like, oh, feminists, whatever. We're never fucking escaping because you bitches will be like, yeah, I believe every relationship should technically be 100-100, but in our designed roles. Like a man should be a provider and the woman should be a nurturer. Oh my god. Oh my god, dude, those men back in the day would have loved to beat on you, wouldn't they? It's like, have we not grown as a society? Have we not progressed past this point? I genuinely find this shit disheartening. And it's like, if it works for your relationship, that's great. But this is a terrible mindset to have.
The first date has turned into a battlefield. It's no longer about dinner, chemistry, or good conversation. It's about who's going to get accused first. Today, even paying the bill has become a red flag. Yes, you heard that right. A simple gesture that used to be seen as respect is now treated like manipulation. And that's exactly where modern dating is falling apart. Let's be real. First dates today feel almost like an emotional trap. People say they want romance, connection, respect. But the moment the bill hits the table, suddenly everyone shows what they really think about roles, responsibilities, and value. And that's when the chaos starts. Because when a simple action, the man paying for dinner, turns into accusations of sexism, control, or toxicity, we're not talking about money anymore. We're talking about completely misaligned values. The problem isn't that the guy wants to pay. The problem is how that gesture is interpreted. In a world where everything becomes an issue, where kindness is treated like a threat, where any gesture is suspicious, being polite has basically become dangerous. That's the real red flag. Not the man paying, but the woman who turns that into a test, a weapon, or an accusation. Think about it. If a simple act of generosity turns into a moral debate, imagine trying to build an entire relationship like that. Impossible. It starts wrong. It starts defensive. It starts with someone trying to prove they don't owe anything to anyone, even when nobody asked for anything in return. And that's why so many dates die right there at the restaurant table. It's not because the sushi was expensive. It's because a gesture that used to mean respect is now treated like an ideological attack. The guy thinks he's being polite. The woman thinks he's trying to buy power. Two people at the same table, living completely different realities. Here's the most important part. When a woman interprets every masculine gesture as a threat, when she sees malice in everything, when she believes any sign of care is camouflaged control, that says nothing about the man. It says everything about her past experiences, traumas, and the ideology she's carrying around. And if that already shows up on the first date, imagine the 10th. These situations reveal something bigger. It's not about who pays. It's about emotional and mental compatibility. It's about two worlds trying to meet. One that still believes in kindness, and another that sees kindness as oppression. That can't work. It can't turn into anything healthy. If the foundation is already conflict, every step will become a fight. In the end, the first date fiasco doesn't start with the bill. It starts with interpretation, with fear, with the lack of shared values. When a simple gesture becomes a red flag, you're not sitting across from a potential partner. You're sitting across from someone who came armed. Here's what nobody likes to admit. The first date has turned into a disguised testing ground. It's no longer two people getting to know each other. It's almost like a job interview where every tiny detail, who opens the door, who reaches for the wallet, becomes an instant psychological evaluation. And the worst part? Most of these tests are never spoken out loud. They hide behind fake smiles and polite phrases. But the truth shows up the moment the check arrives. When the man pays, you see two clear reactions. The woman who sees it as respect, care, and good manners. The woman who sees it as debt, manipulation, or sexism. And it doesn't matter what the guy does. The meaning isn't in the gesture. It's in her mind. It's in what she believes about men. In what she learned from her friends, TikTok, bitter relationship coaches, or past experiences she never worked through. In other words, the man walks into the date already carrying weight that isn't his. And here's the real problem. If she sees manipulation in kindness, How will she react when he shows leadership, firmness, or takes initiative? She'll call him controlling. If he shares a strong opinion, she'll say he's toxic. If he has standards, she'll say he's too demanding. There's no winning. He walks in losing just for existing. And notice something else. When paying the bill becomes an argument, it shows the date wasn't about connection. It was about expectation. A lot of women show up expecting to be convinced. The man has to prove value, prove he's not like the others, prove he deserves a second date. And she doesn't prove anything. She just shows up, then complains that men don't put in effort anymore. But how are men supposed to put in effort when every effort gets treated as suspicious? How can anyone act naturally knowing every move might be interpreted as a threat? That's not a date. It's an emotional minefield. And no healthy relationship grows from that. The biggest red flag on a first date isn't who pays. It's when the woman turns a simple gesture into ideology. Because that means the entire relationship will be a battle of interpretations. He does A, she hears B. He says X, she hears Y. Constant conflict. Constant tension. When that shows up on the first date, the guy should smile, pay the bill, and walk out relieved, knowing he just dodged months of headaches. Let's dig deeper into the real problem. The modern war between expectation and reality. A lot of people step into a first date carrying an invisible list of what the other person should do. And the most common one is, if he's a real man, he pays. Yet, ironically, that same person will claim she doesn't believe in traditional roles. Funny, right? She wants independence, but only the convenient parts. And when the man notices this game, and yes, he notices, something shifts inside him. He no longer sees the date as two adults getting to know each other. He sees it as a silent test, a constant evaluation, a hidden demand dressed up as romance. And that ruins everything. No man wants to start something knowing every gesture he makes might be labeled sexist, manipulative, or controlling. The truth is, men now walk on terrain where kindness becomes suspicious, politeness becomes a sign of exaggerated romantic interest, and offering to pay becomes a reason for an ideological debate. That's the point. When a simple gesture needs explanation, justification, and defense, that's no longer a date. It's a values battle. And if a woman sees a threat where there is none on the first date, imagine the day-to-day. Imagine when he takes initiative, solves a problem, suggests a plan, shows leadership. Everything will be labeled, everything questioned, everything analyzed through the lens of possible toxicity. That's not a relationship. That's a relationship haunted by ghosts of past relationships. And here's the part no one wants to admit. When a woman sees control in every masculine gesture, it usually has nothing to do with the man sitting in front of her. It's about past experiences, trauma, bitter friends planting ideas, TikTok videos screaming, "If he pays, he's manipulating you," and cheap self-help books that confuse independence with paranoia. In other words, the man becomes the backdrop for a war that has nothing to do with him. And that already tells him everything he needs to know. There is no space for a real connection when one side shows up emotionally armed. And that leads to the most important question every man should ask on a first date. Is this woman here to get to know who I actually am, or to confirm the negative beliefs she already has about men? If it's the second, and often it is, the relationship is dead before it even begins. Now we need to talk about the real impact this whole conflict has on men's minds. Because there's a very clear reason why so many guys have simply walked away from the dating game. No matter what he does, someone will say he's wrong. If he pays the bill, he's buying power. If he doesn't, he's cheap and disrespectful. If he's romantic, he's too intense. If he's reserved, he's not trying hard enough. It's like there's an invisible scale where a man is always below the minimum score. And this environment creates a certain kind of quiet man, the kind who just observes. He doesn't complain, he doesn't argue, he doesn't try to justify himself, he just sees everything. And when he realizes the woman across from him interprets every gesture as a threat, he simply shuts down emotionally. He understands there's no room to be natural there. Everything becomes calculation. Everything becomes a careful effort not to be misunderstood. And nobody wants a relationship that starts with the fear of breathing wrong. Because here's the truth. When a man sees that a woman reacts to the world with automatic suspicion, he already knows any connection with her will demand too much emotional energy. He'll have to walk on eggshells so he doesn't trigger insecurities that aren't his. He'll have to explain himself for things he never did. He'll be seen as a potential danger until proven otherwise. And even then, any slip, real or imagined, becomes proof she was right all along. And that's when the date becomes a disaster. Not because the man didn't want to pay, not because the woman refused, but because the emotional environment was contaminated before the menu even hit the table. And here's another point almost no one talks about. When a woman interprets chivalry as control, she doesn't realize she's rejecting not just the gesture, but the type of man who makes that gesture. And usually, this is the same type of man she claims she wants. Responsible, respectful, stable, present, committed. But because she's stuck in a narrative where any sign of masculine leadership is sexism, she sabotages her own chance at a healthy relationship. In the end, a first date is not a job interview or a feminist tribunal. It's just two people trying to see if there's a vibe. And when one person shows up with a mind polluted by theories, fears, and preloaded scripts, there will never be vibe, only tension. When the guy notices this, he doesn't walk away because he's not interested. He walks away out of emotional survival. We've finally reached the real question. What does this whole fiasco actually reveal about modern dating? It's not about money. It's not about who pays the bill. It's not about tradition versus modernity. It's something much deeper, mental and emotional compatibility. Because when a simple gesture, paying for dinner, turns into a philosophical debate, it means the relationship was already fractured before it ever existed. And what many people don't see is that this mismatch isn't random. It comes from different worldviews. On one side, a man who sees the first date as something light, a chance to get to know someone, maybe build something. On the other side, a woman conditioned to interpret any masculine gesture as a potential threat. There's no way those two worlds can coexist without conflict. And here's the truth most people try to hide. When a woman reacts with hostility, suspicion, or ideology to a simple gesture, she's not rejecting the gesture. She's rejecting the type of man who would make that gesture. And ironically, that type of man is the exact one she often claims doesn't exist anymore. But he does exist. The difference is that today, he has zero patience for proving himself to someone who already decided he's a problem before he even opened his mouth. He's not interested in trying to fix someone's worldview. He doesn't want a relationship where everything he does is examined under an emotional microscope. Because he knows, and this matters, respect is a prerequisite, not a reward. And if it's not there on the first date, it won't magically appear later. That's why so many men simply walk away. Not out of weakness, not out of fear, but because they've realized pouring energy into someone who meets them with automatic resistance is a waste of life. And that has nothing to do with giving up on love. It's about protecting peace. And there's more. When a man casually pays the bill and the woman turns it into a red flag, she's already showing what the tone of that relationship would be. Defensive, reactive, full of assumptions. And he notices instantly. And once he sees that, he puts his phone back in his pocket, thanks her for the date, smiles, and never comes back. Not out of spite, but because no one builds a partnership with someone who interprets care as control. In the end, the first date fiasco exists to reveal one simple truth. You can't force connection where there is no alignment of values. And without that alignment, the bill may get paid, but the future of the relationship is already broken. And here's the bottom line. I'm not going to stop being who I am because someone chose to see malice where there was only respect. If a basic gesture like paying the bill turns into a battlefield, that says nothing about me. It says everything about the chaos modern dating has become. I'm not here to prove I'm safe, modern, or socially updated enough to fit into someone's fears. I'm here to build something real with someone who recognizes a genuine gesture when they see one. If the person across the table gets lost in theories, paranoia, and imaginary dramas, I'll smile, pay the bill, and move on. Because partnership doesn't grow out of paranoia. Real relationships begin when two adults can sit together, talk, and treat each other with respect without turning every move into a threat. I know what I bring to the table. I know how I treat a woman. And I know that when I meet someone who understands that without panicking, without overthinking, without turning kindness into danger, things will flow naturally. Because real connection doesn't need to be explained. It just happens. Until then, I stay the same, calm, respectful, straightforward, and far from anyone who confuses care with control. Because at the end of the day, I'm not the one losing. The one who loses is the person who no longer knows how to recognize a man who's actually trying to do the right thing.